The jungle moon of Calathari was as hot as a blast furnace and twice as humid. Every step Sergeant Cole Maddox took sunk half an inch into mossy overgrowth, and the sound of distant, shrieking fauna never stopped, like the planet itself was protesting his presence. It wasn't exactly his favorite assignment, but he'd learned not to complain. Mercenary work wasn't glamorous, and contracts like this one were rare, simple escort duty, no combat expected. He was there to accompany a diplomatic envoy from the United Earth Coalition to House Shannara, one of the ruling families of Calathari. Negotiations were underway for a new trade route through neutral space. The royals of Shannara, known for their towering architecture and notoriously complex social protocols, wanted to be sure their interests were protected. Cole didn't care about the politics. He was just the muscle. At first glance, the moon was beautiful. Vines dangled from massive trees that arched into the clouds. Rivers shimmered with bioluminescent algae that pulsed like veins beneath the water's surface. But the beauty was skin-deep. There were predators hiding in every crevice, some with teeth, others with titles. They arrived at the ceremonial terrace just before dusk. Carved from black stone and suspended above a waterfall, the platform was where ancient treaties were signed, alliances brokered, and when necessary, duels fought to the death. Cole stood just behind the diplomatic envoy, scanning the crowd. Hundreds of violet-skinned Shannarians had gathered. Some wore battle gear, others ceremonial robes with flowing crystal inlays. Their tall frames and four-fingered hands made them seem otherworldly even to a man who'd served on a dozen alien worlds. The representative from Earth, Ambassador Lee, stood before the gathered nobles, her voice calm as she outlined the terms of mutual benefit. Cole barely listened. His eyes moved constantly. Watching. Assessing. That's when he saw her. Princess Arakataith Vareli. She stood apart from the others, flanked by two honor guards clad in obsidian armor. Her silver eyes flicked between Lee and the surrounding nobles, and her expression was unreadable. Her gown was less ornamental than most, fitted like something a soldier might wear beneath armor. The tension in her jaw, the set of her shoulders, she didn't want to be here. Cole admired that. He respected people who didn't pretend. Then he saw the assassin. It was a flicker, barely a shimmer of movement from the crowd. A cloaked figure sliding between the gathered nobles like smoke. In one fluid motion, the assassin drew a crystalline dagger, its blade refracting the sunset's last light into a kaleidoscope of deadly beauty. Cole moved without thinking. He didn't shout. Didn't hesitate. He lunged. The dagger flew through the air, aimed straight at Araka's throat. Cole tackled her just in time. The blade buried itself in his shoulder with a sickening crunch. Pain exploded behind his eyes. He grunted, rolled, and pulled Araka beneath him, shielding her with his body. The crowd erupted, some in panic, others in fury. Weapons were drawn. Screams echoed across the terrace. Cole groaned, trying to sit up. His vision swam. Blood soaked his armor, dark and sticky. The dagger was still embedded deep. Around him, honor guards surged forward, forming a protective ring. "Don't move," one of them barked, pointing a weapon at his head. "Stand down." Araka's voice cut through the chaos like steel. The guards froze. She sat up beneath Cole's weight and gently pushed him off her. He collapsed beside her, still clutching the handle of the dagger. His breathing was shallow. "You're hurt," she said, her tone unreadable. "No shit," he rasped. Then a voice rose from the rear of the platform, deep, commanding, ancient. "The shield has acted," declared an elder in gold and indigo robes. He stepped forward, flanked by a group of priests with silver eyes and glowing crystal staffs. Everyone fell silent. Even the birds stopped calling. "The blood has been offered. The pact has been sealed." Cole blinked. "What now?" The elder stared at him with something between reverence and alarm. "He has invoked the right of the Bodyguard. He is now bonded to the princess." Wait. Hold up," Cole croaked. "What the hell are you talking about?" Araka's expression shifted. Not shock, not anger, just resignation. As though she had known this moment was coming for a long time, even if she hadn't known the face of the man who would trigger it. "You took the blade meant for me," she said softly. "You shielded me with your blood. In our culture, that invokes an ancient law. The bond of Bodyguard." "I didn't agree to anything," Cole muttered. "Your blood did." His vision dimmed. "I really hate politics," he mumbled before the world went black. He awoke to low humming and the gentle click of soft shoes on stone. He was lying on a curved surface, soft, almost spongy. The air smelled of crushed mint and something metallic. Slowly, he sat up. His shoulder burned. The wound had been dressed and wrapped in a slick greenish weave that pulsed faintly with some kind of biotech. A translucent membrane parted like a curtain. Araka entered, alone, her expression unreadable. "How long was I out?" Cole asked. 2 days. "Where are we?" The healer's cloister, deep in the Capitol spire. He swung his legs over the side, groaning. I've been shot, stabbed, and once half-eaten by a centipede the size of a minivan. This still feels worse. Because what you did changed everything. He looked up, squinting. This blood bond thing, how serious are we talking? Her jaw tightened. You are now my shield bond. According to tradition, that makes you my consort. He coughed. Come again. It's more than a title. It means you were sworn to protect me and I am sworn to you. You have entered the royal lineage. Our bond is recognized by the crown, the conclave, and the people. Cole stared. You're saying I married you by getting stabbed? In essence. He stood abruptly, then groaned and leaned against the wall. Look, I appreciate the medical care, but I didn't ask for this. Neither did I, Araka said quietly. But the right was written in blood. There's no unbinding, no annulment. Of course there isn't, Cole muttered. She hesitated, then added, you will be tested. The people will demand it. Tested how? Through the three rights. Flesh, mind, spirit. Only then will they accept you. Or they will challenge the bond and demand your execution. Cole blinked. And if I pass these trials? Then you will be fully accepted. As consort, as heir, as a member of the royal bloodline. He sank back down, rubbing his temples. I just wanted to finish the damn escort job. Refuel. Get paid. Araka sat across from him, folding her long limbs gracefully. Sometimes the stars choose their own paths. He stared at her. And sometimes mercenaries get stabbed and wake up married to royalty. For the first time, she smiled. The next morning, the palace was abuzz. Word had spread. The shield bond had been chosen. That he was human only made the story grow faster, echoing through the cities, the forests, even the cloud domes over the mountains. In the conclave hall, nobles gathered in silence as Cole was led forward, flanked by guards in silver armor. He hated the attention. Hated being unarmed. Hated the way the nobles stared at him like he was some beast dragged in from the wild. At the center of the dais stood the High Elder, a towering Shannarian male with glowing tattoos along his neck and jaw. He raised his staff, and the chamber fell still. Cole Maddox of Earth, the Elder began, you have enacted the right of the Bodyguard. You stand now as bonded to Princess Araka Taithvarelli. Do you accept this role and the burden it brings? I didn't ask for any of this, Cole said evenly. But I don't walk away from a life I protected. If your laws say I'm bound to her, then I'll face what comes with it. But I won't bow to anyone. Gasps rippled through the chamber. The Elder's expression didn't change. Spoken with the fire of a true shield bond. Then the trials shall commence at dawn. He struck the staff on the ground. Sparks erupted, dancing like fireflies. The first rite was coming. And Cole Maddox, mercenary from Earth, had just become the most important man on the jungle moon of Calathari. The jungle moon of Calathari didn't sleep. Even deep within the Capitol spire, where crystal towers pierced the clouds and the air smelled of ozone and incense, there was always motion. Always hum. Always tension. Cole Maddox could feel it in his bones as he stared out the window of his newly assigned quarters, if you could call it that. The chamber was the size of a small apartment block, draped in flowing silks and vines that glowed faintly in the dark. It smelled clean and ancient, like polished stone and sacred dust. A cluster of Shannarian attendants had bowed to him earlier, called him Shield Bond, and quickly left, avoiding eye contact. They feared him. Or perhaps worse, they revered him. He hated both. He turned from the window as the doors hissed open. Araka entered, alone, dressed not in the royal regalia he'd seen before but in a training uniform, tight-fitting black and silver with no adornments. Functional. Focused. Tomorrow you begin the first trial, she said without preamble. He nodded. So I've heard. There will be no further warnings. No second chances. If you die, the bond is dissolved and I am disgraced. Cole sat down heavily on the edge of the divan. Well, no pressure then. Araka crossed her arms, her silver eyes piercing. You joke because you are afraid. He gave her a flat look. I joke because I don't have time to panic. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Outside, something shrieked, a bird or a machine. On this planet, the two were often indistinguishable. Finally, she broke the silence. You saved my life, Cole. I didn't ask for that. I didn't want a human involved in my fate. But now that you are, I need you to understand what you're part of. I'm trying, he said honestly. But between the blood rites, spirit trials, and accidental marriage, it's a lot to take in. You're not married yet, she said quietly. He looked up. I thought I was. The bond is recognized, yes, but not consummated. Not solidified in the eyes of the people. That only happens if you pass all three trials. He frowned. So if I fail, we both walk away? No, she said. If you fail, you die. And House Varelli loses its last heir. He stood abruptly. Great. Araka's expression didn't change. I will train you. I know your physiology. I've studied Earth combat styles. I know how you fight. Funny, he said, because I have no idea how your people fight. Then we begin immediately. The training grounds of the palace weren't what Cole expected. They were deep underground, an arena carved from obsidian and glowing quartz. The air was thick with heat and reverence. This wasn't a gym. This was a temple of war. Araka led him to the center circle. This is where you'll face your first trial tomorrow. Flesh. Combat. You'll be pitted against a chosen warrior of the conclave. You don't need to win. Just survive. Easy for you to say, he muttered, already shedding his tunic. Her eyes lingered briefly on his torso. She said nothing, but he didn't miss the flicker of something in her gaze. Curiosity? Appreciation? She stepped into the circle with him and tossed him a weighted practice blade. It was heavier than anything he'd used before, curved, balanced at the hilt with a strange counterweight that tugged the wrist on every swing. That's a cleaver sword, she explained. A hybrid weapon, melee for strength, precision for counters. All our warriors train with one. So will you. He adjusted his grip. Feels like it's trying to pull my arm off. You're holding it wrong. He turned just as she moved. Her leg swept his feet out from under him. He hit the stone floor hard and groaned. Lesson 1, she said, standing over him. Balance comes from the core, not the arms. Again. They trained for hours. Cole lost track of how many times he fell, how many bruises bloomed across his skin. Araka didn't go easy on him. If anything, she pushed him harder than he'd ever been pushed before, shouting commands in her native tongue, correcting his stances, punishing his sloppiness. But she also corrected him with precision, never wasting words. And slowly, something shifted. He began to adjust. By the 5th hour, he was anticipating her moves. By the 6th, he blocked a blow she hadn't expected him to see coming. She paused then, breathing hard, her cheeks flushed with effort. You learn quickly. I had good motivation, he panted. She raised an eyebrow. Survival? He looked at her. You. The moment stretched between them. Then she turned and tossed him a water flask. Hydrate. Again. That night, he lay on his back in his massive chamber, staring at the domed ceiling of glowing stars. His muscles ached. His arms trembled every time he moved. But for the first time since landing on this moon, he felt something like clarity. He had saved a life. Bound himself to it. Now he had to fight for it. He was still trying to understand Araka. She was unlike anyone he'd ever met, alien in the truest sense. Not just physically, but emotionally. She spoke little of herself. She wore her duty-like armor. But behind her gaze was a storm. He wanted to know her. Not just because the trial demanded it, but because he couldn't stop thinking about that flicker of vulnerability in her eyes. The way she looked at him when she thought he wasn't looking. The next day, he met her on the training grounds again, bruised but determined. She circled him like a hawk. Your instincts are good, she admitted. But instincts won't win tomorrow. You must learn to channel your rage. To use it without letting it control you. Did you? He asked. She froze. He hadn't meant to pry. But the question was out. Araka looked away. When I was 16, I watched my brother die during the flesh trial. He was meant to be heir. He failed. I'm sorry. It wasn't your fault. No, Cole said. But it matters. Knowing what this means to you. She looked at him again. I didn't expect you to care. Neither did I, he said honestly. That evening, he was summoned to the conclave hall. The High Elder addressed him again, this time in front of an even larger crowd. You have trained. You have bled. But training and pain are not proof of worth. Tomorrow you will face the first trial. Should you pass, the people will begin to see you not as an outsider, but as shield bond. The crowd murmured. Then the elder held up a scroll. Should you fail, House Varelli's claim to the throne will be voided. Princess Araka will be disinherited. You will die. Cole didn't flinch. He turned and looked to Araka. She nodded once. That was enough. He didn't sleep that night. But when dawn rose over the jungle canopy and the arena filled with chanting warriors and robed spectators, Cole Maddox was already waiting in the ring. His blade gleamed in the rising sun. And Araka was watching from the royal platform, her eyes unreadable. The time for training was over. Tomorrow, the trial would begin. And nothing on this world, or any other, would ever be the same again. The arena was a carved basin of black volcanic stone, etched with ancient sigils that shimmered faintly in the dawn light. Mist rolled across the upper tiers, catching the pale sunbeams and casting the crowd into shifting silhouettes. Above it all, high in the central dais, stood the triad of conclave elders clad in ceremonial robes that shimmered like woven light. Cole Maddox stood in the heart of the ring, dressed in modified ceremonial armor, deep violet with silver accents that traced the Shannarian glyphs of protection and endurance. It wasn't built for comfort. The plates chafed, the helmet pinched his forehead, and his left pauldron pressed on the bruises Urraca had left during their final sparring session the night before. But it wasn't about comfort. It was about presence. And the crowd was watching. Tens of thousands of violet eyes, glowing softly beneath hoods and helms, stared down at the lone human in the pit. They didn't cheer. They didn't jeer. They simply waited as if watching a storm approach the shore. Urraca stood on a balcony to the side, flanked by her honor guard. Her expression was unreadable, cold, calm, and immovable. But her eyes never left him. Cole rolled his shoulders, adjusting his grip on the cleaver sword. It was heavier than anything he'd used in real combat, balanced for a Shannarian's longer arms. But he'd trained until the grip became familiar, until the blade sang through the air like an extension of his will. A gong sounded deep and resonant, echoing across the spire. "The first rite shall begin," declared the High Elder. His voice reverberated unnaturally, enhanced by the crystalline acoustics of the chamber. "Flesh against flesh. Will against will. Should the shield bond endure, he shall be recognized as a bearer of strength." The opposing gate hissed open. From it strode the champion of House Idrin. She was a titan at least 8 feet tall, clad in red battle plate etched with glowing runes. 4 arms. 2 of them gripped a paired set of jagged glaives that curved like scorpion tails. The other 2 were bare, muscular, and painted with blood, hers or someone else's. Cole couldn't tell. "Champion Zero of Idrin," the High Elder announced. 18 victories. No defeats. Veteran of the Crucible Wars. Slayer of the Krith Leviathan. The crowd murmured then. Zira tilted her head. Her burning violet eyes locked on Cole. Her voice was low, rough like sand over steel. "You were smaller than I expected." Cole swallowed once. "You're exactly what I feared." She smiled, then lunged. The first blow was a blur. Cole ducked on instinct alone. The twin glaives whooshed over his head, slicing the air with a bone-deep hum. He rolled sideways and brought his blade up in a desperate arc. It met one of her lower arms and deflected it harmlessly, barely. She pivoted on a heel and swung again. The force of her strike knocked him off balance. His foot slid on the smooth stone, and he barely avoided a downward slash that would have shattered his ribs. She was faster than she looked, and far stronger. Cole gritted his teeth, refocused, and shifted to a lower stance. Urraca's voice echoed in his memory. "Don't meet her strength head-on. Redirect. Absorb. Reposition." He circled, feinting, testing her defenses. Zira didn't rush him. She was a predator, playing with her food. "I faced terrors on the edge of the void," she said, stalking him. "You are a novelty, nothing more." Cole lunged forward, testing, slashing. Zira blocked it effortlessly and retaliated with a shoulder bash that lifted him off his feet and slammed him into the arena wall. The stone cracked behind his back. His breath fled his lungs. Pain exploded through his ribs. He stumbled forward, coughing, and smiled. "Novelty's an upgrade," he muttered, raising his blade again. The crowd was silent. Shannarians didn't cheer during the rite of flesh. It was a sacred tradition. Spectacle and reverence intertwined. But there was a change in the air now. A subtle shift in their attention. The human wasn't dead. Wasn't broken. He stood. Again. He moved more carefully this time. Letting Zira push him. Letting her overextend. Urraca's lessons echoed in his thoughts. Shannarian warriors favor dominance. They want submission. Make them chase you. Make them hungry. Then punish them. He ducked under another flurry of strikes. Sparks flew as glaive met sword. Metal screamed. Then he saw it, an opening. A brief one. A misstep as she shifted her weight. He stepped inside her guard and drove his elbow into her abdomen. She grunted, surprised but not injured. Then he brought the pommel of his blade up under her chin. The crack echoed. She reeled back. The crowd gasped. He pressed the advantage. Slash. Feint. Parry. Step. Elbow. Strike. She recovered fast. Too fast. Her return swing slammed into his hip. Pain lanced down his leg. He stumbled. She advanced, expression grim. Another swing. He blocked. Barely. His arm screamed in protest. Blood, red, human blood, began to soak through his armor. But he stood. Time blurred. Cole lost count of the exchanges. Of the hits he took. Of the times he thought his bones might snap. But he never fell. Every strike, every dodge, every parry, he remembered Araka's training, his old brawls back on Mars Station, the underground pit fights of Delaris Prime. He remembered surviving. He'd been underestimated before, broken before, left behind before, but never beaten. Not when it counted. And then it happened. Ziru, bleeding now from a cut across her brow, raised both glaives for an overhead strike. Cole didn't block. He stepped into the strike. The glaives passed behind him, too wide. He dropped to one knee and drove his shoulder into her midsection. She staggered. Then he rose, sword reversed, and slammed the pommel against her temple. She dropped to one knee. He leveled the blade at her throat and waited. Her gaze met his, for burning eyes locking onto his too. And then slowly, with a heavy exhale, Ziru spread her arms wide. "I yield," she said. The crowd exploded, cheers, gasps, disbelief. Cole lowered his blade, panting, bloodied, shaking. The High Elder stood. "The human has endured the first rite. Flesh has been tested. Flesh has prevailed." He turned to the dais. "The shield bond shall proceed to the rite of mind." Araka exhaled softly, then nodded. Back in the preparation chamber, Cole sat on the stone bench, stripped to the waist. Araka knelt beside him, her hands deft as she cleaned and sealed his wounds with a glowing salve that stung like hell. "You did it," she murmured. "Remind me never to do it again." He winced. She pressed a hand to his chest, gently, just above the worst bruise. Her eyes met his. "I've seen warriors with decades of training fall in that ring. I got lucky." "No," she said. "You chose not to give up. That is strength. That is what our people respect." He looked at her, really looked. Her cheeks flushed a deeper shade of violet, and she didn't pull away. Later that night, Cole sat alone, watching the jungle lights flicker beyond the palace. He remembered every strike, every scream of his muscles, every second he could have fallen. But he hadn't, and somewhere deep inside he knew. Tomorrow would be harder, the right of mind. But for now he had passed. He had endured. He had earned the right to continue. The conclave's hall of contemplation was nothing like the arena. There were no weapons, no shouting crowds, no bloodshed. It was colder here, quieter. The walls were smooth crystal, and everything echoed. A whisper, a breath, a heartbeat. Cole stood before a triangular dais at the chamber's center. A circular pool of glowing blue fluid encircled it, its rippling surface filled with strands of what looked like silver light. He didn't know what the liquid was, but it radiated calm. Araka stood beside him, once again in her ceremonial robes. She hadn't spoken much since the first rite. Her presence now was not that of a warrior or a trainer. She was royalty again, poised, unreadable and distant. The High Elder stood at the apex of the dais. "Shield bond Cole Maddox," he intoned. "You have proven strength of flesh. Now you shall prove strength of mind. The rite of thought begins now." Cole swallowed. He'd been through field interrogations, diplomatic cross-examinations, and memory cube debriefings, but nothing about this felt like a test. Felt like judgment. 3 robed scholars emerged from the opposite entrance, each one bearing a different crystal tablet. The central scholar, taller than the others, carried a ring of silver, a memory halo. "The rite of mind," said the High Elder, "has 3 phases: strategy, law, and insight. Each shall challenge your cognition, your memory, and your understanding of our people. Fail to, and the bond is broken." "Understood," Cole said, though his stomach twisted. Araka turned to him briefly. "Just remember what we practiced." He nodded once. Then the halo descended. Phase 1, strategy. The chamber darkened. Only the light from the ring above Cole's head remained. Images flickered across the air in front of him, a tactical map. Clans, territories, rivers, strongholds. Pieces began to shift. Troop markers, resources. A disembodied voice echoed. "You command House Varelli. House Idrin moves against you. Their forces are 3 times your number. You have 5 options. Choose one." Cole squinted. Option 1, fortify. Option 2, ambush. Option 3, parley. Option 4, retreat. Option 5, divide. He knew what the Shannarians expected. A display of cunning, of sacrifice. He didn't choose fortify. That would be suicide. Parley was naive. Retreat was weakness. Divide, maybe. Ambush? Option 2, he said. The image shifted. He was now managing 4 divisions, forced to choose where to send them across terrain he only vaguely understood. It went on for nearly an hour. Each choice spawned another. A new twist. A trap. A betrayal. But Cole adapted. He remembered Araka's lessons. How House Idrin favored aggressive positioning. How they underestimated patience. He used it. Set bait. Spread rumors. Built decoys. When the simulation ended, he had lost a third of his troops, but the enemy was routed. Evaluation acceptable, the voice said. Cognitive balance and tactical creativity within Shannarian threshold. Cole exhaled. Phase 1 complete. Phase 2, law. The next image was a table, an ornate diagram of branching decisions. The voice returned, interpretation of House law. Case review. 3 scrolls unrolled before him. Each one written in the curling Shannarian script he could now partially read. Case 1. A noble heir invokes a right of vengeance without first seeking consensus. Case 2. A shield bond refuses a trial by fire after being summoned. Case 3. A consort of a fallen noble seeks inheritance through marriage rights. Each case had a dozen subclauses, many referencing previous disputes across centuries. Cole's head spun, but he remembered the diagrams Araka had drilled into his head. The lineage charts. The doctrine maps. Their long nights at the study altar with only candles and tea. He used analogies, mapped them to things he knew. Contracts. Earth precedent. Case 1. He ruled against the heir. Without consensus, vengeance became murder. Case 2. He sided with the shield bond. Fear did not negate tradition, but must be weighed against bond integrity. Case 3. He ruled for the consort. The marriage rights were valid. When he finished, there was silence. Then the scholars nodded. Evaluation, within threshold. 2 for 2. Phase 3, insight. The room changed. Darkness fell. The ring lifted from his head. And Araka stood before him, alone. Except it wasn't her. Not exactly. The image flickered. This Araka was younger, clad in different armor. Her eyes were filled with tears. Behind her stood a man, a Shannarian warrior in blood-stained armor. He was dying. Cole realized this was a memory. The voice spoke again. Final trial. You will witness a sacred memory of your bond partner. You must interpret its meaning. But beware, what you see may not be what is. The scene played. Araka cradled the man's head. He whispered something, and she nodded. Then she stood, drew a blade, and executed him with a single stroke. The crowd in the memory recoiled. Her own people shouted curses. She walked away alone. The scene ended. Cole stood, heart pounding. What did I just see? The voice asked. He swallowed. She executed a comrade, he said slowly. But it wasn't betrayal. It was a mercy. I think he was infected. Or tainted. And she took the burden herself. Silence. Then your insight is correct. The chamber brightened. Araka stood before him, real this time. Her face was unreadable. That memory is sacred, she said. Only my closest advisors knew. I know now, Cole said quietly. Then you are truly mine, she said. The High Elder approached. You have passed all 3 phases. By thought and will, the shield bond has proven his worth. The chamber erupted in murmurs. Cole turned to Araka. Her eyes met his. This time, there was no shield. Only pride. Atop the tallest peak in the southern range, nestled among ancient stones older than any city, stood the Temple of Echoes. The third right, spirit, would be held there. Cole didn't sleep the night before. He stood on the platform with Araka as their skimmer ascended through cloud banks. The higher they went, the colder it got, until frost coated the railings. The temple came into view, etched from the bones of the mountain itself, wrapped in vines that glowed with ethereal light. This is the last one, Araka said softly. Cole looked at her. What happens in there? She hesitated. No one knows exactly. Each person sees something different. Ancestors. Visions. Doubts. Truths. He nodded. Sounds fun. Inside the temple, a circle of elders waited. At the center, a crystal blade floated, hovering in the air. The original bond blade. The one from which all clan weapons were forged. Cole stepped forward. The High Elder chanted. By blood, he was joined. By flesh, he endured. By mind, he understood. Now by spirit, he shall be tested. Cole stepped into the circle. touched the blade, and the world fell away. He was in darkness, floating. Then light, images, his past, Earth, Mars, battles, losses. Then Araka, her face, her fury, her compassion. Then another, a woman, a child, his mother? He reached out, but the image shifted. The blade pulsed. He saw fire, war, Calathari burning. He saw himself standing at the center. He saw Araka holding a child, and behind her an army. The blade vibrated. Words formed in the air. Will you protect what you do not yet understand? He nodded. Will you sacrifice comfort for burden? Yes. Will you love without control? Yes. Then rise. He gasped. Back in the temple. On his knees. The blade floated down and hovered in front of him, changed. It now bore his name carved beside Araka's. The room erupted in stunned whispers. No one had ever had their name etched into a bond blade. Araka stepped forward. Then it is done, she whispered. That night, the bond was celebrated. Feasts, fireworks, dances. But Cole and Araka skipped it. They stood on her private balcony watching the twin moons. You passed all three, she said. You're officially my consort. He turned. And what do you want? She hesitated, then approached. I want someone who chose me, not just the bond. He cupped her face. I didn't choose to be stabbed, but I choose what I do with it. He kissed her. This time, no ceremony. Only truth. They made love slowly, discovering each other. Not just flesh, but heart. Two worlds colliding. Two souls choosing the collision. Weeks passed. Then one morning, Araka stood silently at the garden's edge. Her hand on her belly. I'm pregnant. Cole blinked. Then smiled. Of course you are. The child came early. During a council meeting, Araka collapsed. Cole carried her to the birthing temple. Hours passed. The screams echoed through stone. But when the child arrived, he was perfect. Half human, half Shannarian. A boy. They named him Erlin, Bridge Between Stars. The people rallied. The prophecy was fulfilled. Even Araka's enemies bent the knee. A new era began. Cole was no longer outsider. He was founder. 1 year later, Earth ships descended. Diplomatic contact. Trade. Understanding. Cole stood with Araka and Erlin, watching as two worlds met. This started with a wound, he whispered. She took his hand and healed into a future.